Tuesday night, it's This Is Going Well, I Think, with David Cooper. I am David Cooper. It's This Is Going Well, I Think. The show where no one's listening. The show where no one cares. The show where every episode's the last episode. Today's gonna be a wonderful one. In about 10 minutes' time, we'll talk to a psychology professor who recently did a study into bisexual women. That study shows that bi women exhibit more male-like, more dark personality traits and sexual tendencies than straight women. That's right. Bisexual women, dark personality traits, things like Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. We'll dig into why and how and the research. After that, it's sexual health and consent educator Samantha Biddy for our segment called Sex Etc. Samantha, like many other people, are fed up with the apps. Dating on the apps these days is like a barren wasteland. So the question is, should we let our friends set us up with people? You know, you got two buddies and you think they'd get on great. Well, it may not be such a good idea, and Samantha and I are going to discuss why and also when it might be a great idea. After that, it's foreign correspondent Tony Five, and Tony and I are going to talk about the Burning Man Arts Festival. That's right, I'll be going this year at the end of August, and it's my annual Talk About the Event with Tony because it's all I can think about hour for 20 minutes, because he's only on the show for 20 minutes. After that, the science linking aging and cancer is voluminous, but research being dug into it now says inflammation is more and more the culprit. I'm going to talk to a professor of medicine who specializes in cancer about something called inflammaging and what we can do in our old age to prevent inflammation and lower our risk. That, my friends, is but a small slice, a mere cross-section of a show that's going to be extraordinary, so let's get on with it. But first, this. How are you doing today? Because I'm doing fine, but it stinks over here. I myself live in New York City, the city that never sleeps, or now breathes fresh air, apparently, because it's officially the stinkiest summer in New York City in quite some time. And that's not thanks to one, not two, but three delightful heat waves. Because of the heat, the city's aroma has reached new nose-tingling heights. Since May the 1st, there have been a whopping 3,756 odor complaints to the city's 311 line. You know, that's like customer service for the city. So there's data to back this up, and that's more than any year on record in the last 15 years, except for 2022, when the pandemic had the city relaxing on street cleaning rules. So that's just a technicality, because who needs clean streets when you're stuck inside anyway? But because everyone's out in force now, they say New York is back. Manhattanites are calling it a, quote, assault on the schnoz. Things are so bad, one retail worker in Midtown told reporters that she thinks dead rats are everywhere. I mean, she's probably right, but we can't give all the credit to the rats. Human beings are perfectly capable of creating this disgusting aroma all by themselves. One meteorologist says it's due to the high humidity and temperatures. That's what's to blame. Just imagine walking out of a sauna that smells like hot garbage. Well, that's basically New York City right now. I breathe through my mouth because Mother Nature has decided to turn this entire city into one giant sweaty gym locker. You know, but not just any gym locker, one with jerseys that have been marinating in man stank in the hamper for 1 week that smell like mildew and feces, and I'll stop. And what else have I noticed? Our garbage trucks. Trusty, dusty New York garbage trucks, which usually perfume one block at a time, are now broadcasting their foul scent across several blocks at a time. It's sort of a sensational experience you didn't sign up for. And lest we forget bacterial growth. New York's hot garbage smell is courtesy of high-growth bacteria that have a garbage party in people's trash bags. The bacteria flows out in rivers via my favorite liquid, garbage water. It's somewhat like a science experiment gone horribly wrong, and yes, I myself and everyone else are all living in it. Now, this isn't just a Manhattan problem, though that borough does get a gold medal for stinkiness with 33% of the complaints. The next stinkiest boroughs are Brooklyn and Queens. Staten Island, you lucky devils, you're the least stinky, but you're still in the game. Now, despite this nasal onslaught, the Department of Sanitation says there's actually less trash on the street this year than in prior years. It's all due to the weather. A spokesman for the city claims a new containerization program are partly to thank for this. That's right, buildings are finally being forced, at least some of them, to toss their trash into containers and not just lining the sidewalk like a beautiful public art display. So if you're in New York and you happen to gag on your walk from point A to point B, just remember it could be worse. At least 70% of the city's trash is now covered. I call that progress. Stinky progress. So that's the scoop. Or should I say poop? Stay fresh, New York.
David Cooper, I thought I'd blocked your number.
Hello, Danny. Last week I said there weren't enough news stories for me. Today I'm just too lazy. I just did one. We talked about the hot garbage in New York smell. And I thought I'd call you and make you, what's the word I'm looking for?
Work?
Create the content for this show.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's almost 10 o'clock at night, but sure.
I mean, I got a show to do. It's getting late. I thought I'd have you on it. Have you got any content, or I've got to figure this one out on my own?
I've always got content.
I know.
I'm the content queen. Come on.
You are the content queen. I could think of worse queens. Like my girlfriend says she's the dairy queen because she can handle dairy. Content is almost as good.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got?
So I've got 8 habits of low-quality people who never move forward in life.
Okay. Love it.
Here we go. 8 habits of low-quality people who never move forward in life.
How many do you think I will have before we start?
9.
I love it. Okay. I think you're going to lose this bet. I'm not sure. I only did a minor in math in university, but I think you're going to lose this one.
I don't think so. Number 1, they dwell on the past.
I do it a little. I don't do it in an inordinate.
Let's ask Miranda.
This isn't the Jerry Springer show. What, I'm just going to bring her out? We got Miranda on the line.
Yeah, ask her if you dwell on the past.
A little bit, but not an inordinate amount. No. So I'm gonna say you get half a point there. That's only half true.
Number 2, they avoid responsibility.
Yeah, I've been known to do that. Definitely. Like, for example, today when I was responsible for coming up with the content for the beginning of the show, I just called you. So you get that one.
You did that a couple times last week also.
I like having you on also, by the way.
I don't know if that's the main reason, but okay. Number 3, they have a negative outlook.
Yeah. But isn't that just a tenet of Judaism?
Oh, I'm not going there. Okay, number 4, they lack self-discipline.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's 10 and the show's only like almost done. Yeah, definitely.
So when I said 9, how far off was I?
Well, we've only got through 4, I think.
Uh-huh. Number 5, they're always busy, but never productive.
That you get 2 for that one. You get 2 for that one.
Yes, that means we could get to 9.
Yeah, we could get to 9. All right, what's the next one?
Oh my God, that one is made for you. You're always busy.
Stop! You're laughing too much, and you're making me feel bad about myself.
Okay. Sorry.
Stop laughing! I feel bad now.
Okay. Number 6, they fear change.
Yeah, a little bit, but not an inordinate amount. I just wanted to show off that I can say that word now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll give it to you. I fear change, but so do most people. What's the next one?
Number 7, they compare themselves to others.
I try not to, and I think a lot about how I shouldn't, but I do.
Okay. Number 8, they don't value self-improvement.
You know what? I can't give you that one. I think a lot about how I can be my best self, how I can produce my best work, and I go to therapy. So you know what? It's only 8 because you got 2 for that one, and so 7 plus 1 because you got 2 for 1. It's not 9. You lose, Danny.
So the 8 habits of low-quality people who never move forward in life, we've decided that you have 8.
Yes.
Okay.
But you were wrong. I don't have 9. So in a way, I won today.
Oh, yeah, I never win. That's okay.
I'm so glad I called you. Whenever I'm like stuck with the show and I'm like, what could I possibly do? All I have to do is reach out, and you've always got great ideas and great content. Danny, I love working with you. Thank you for doing this.
Good night, David.
Side note, how many did you have?
I wasn't even. I'm always busy, never productive. Oh, that's me too. Oh.
Danny, you know you're not supposed to swear on this show. You're supposed to be the adult.
Well, you're not still taping.
Yes, I'm still taping.
No, you're not.
Thank you, Danny. This is the best part of the show.
I hate you.
Thank you, Danny. We're moving on.
Oh, okay.
In just a few minutes' time, new research says that bisexual women exhibit dark personality traits, similar to straight men. And by dark personality, we mean Machiavellianism, narcissism, psychopathy. We'll talk to someone who did the research in this area, the how, the why, and the methodology. Well, a new study suggests that bisexual women are just one of the guys. That is, they're like straight men, but maybe not in the most amazing way. Maybe in some dark ways. I'm here with the author of that study. He's an assistant professor in the MacEwan University's Department of Psychology. His name is Scott Semenina. Scott, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
What possessed you to look into the behaviors of specifically bisexual women? What were you hoping to learn? Why were you hoping to compare them? What possesses one to do such a study like this?
Right. So the shorter, condensed version of this is that I had a little bit of an interest or a background in looking at these dark personality traits, that these so-called dark triad of personality traits, just in general. And so that was one line of research that I had coming into graduate school and my early scientific career doing those sorts of things. And then I ended up working in a lab studying sexual orientation. And so my research focus took a very different direction. And in the process of doing that, I basically stumbled upon realizing, well, I could marry these two ideas. I could look at whether or not sexual orientation has something to do with these traits, because we know that the traits differ across men and women in general. And it's of interest to a lot of scientists to look at the way that personality traits vary across sexual orientation as well. And so really I was just marrying a couple of different lines of research into one idea. And it worked out in an interesting way.
And the dark triad, what that's Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. Any one fun, but all three together, really just a wonderful combination.
Yeah, they tend to overlap a little bit. So these are people who are going to be sort of self-obsessed. That's the narcissism bit. The Machiavellianism bit means that they're a little bit manipulative. They sort of work their way politically with information. And then psychopathy, as it's measured in this personality literature, are people that are a little bit less concerned about how moral their actions are, about the feelings of others, and things like that.
Enough about you. Let's talk about me. No, I kid. Okay, so you sought to look at this as it comes to people and their behaviors across genders, across sexual orientations. What did you find in particular with bisexual women? Why were they so comparable to straight men? Or maybe not the mechanism, but what did you find was comparable to straight men?
Yeah, so there's this basic sex difference. If you look in big data sets, and there's lots of data speaking to this, although it can be controversial, you find that men are on average a little bit more interested in casual sexual behavior, although there's plenty of women who are also interested in that. And then men are also higher on psychopathy. They're higher on all of the dark triad traits, but psychopathy is the one that worked out in this study. And those two traits are actually generally linked. People who have higher levels of, say, psychopathy or narcissism, they also tend to have higher levels of interest in casual sexual behavior.
Oh.
So we found that classic sex difference. But then what we also found is that bisexual women were sort of more like the men in the sample on both of those traits, both in psychopathy and in their interest in casual sex. And that difference, I guess, wasn't super surprising because there is literature suggesting that might be the case. The really surprising bit about that is that you have sort of this shift in a male typical direction, and it was stronger among the bisexual women than among women who would probably more accurately be described as lesbian, who are exclusively same-sex attracted. So you're seeing these shifts in a male typical direction across the orientation spectrum, but it's stronger among bisexual women, which was kind of unexpected because if you had to sort of take a guess, you would probably suspect that lesbian women would be shifted more in the male typical direction.
Would you though? I don't know. I guess stereotypically, like media portrayals, it's always the strong lesbian who's kind of, taking on those traditional male gender roles. But in reality, I'm not so sure. And I guess the data links that with my inclination here. My question for you is, do you look into the mechanism as to why that might be, or are you just kind of interpreting the data? Like, why would bisexual women exhibit these dark triad traits more similarly to straight men?
Yeah, and that so lots of psychologists they're going to get themselves in all kinds of trouble because it's really hard to measure mechanism. You need really elaborate, often time-intensive and expensive study designs to figure out actual mechanisms, and so there's no way to figure out the mechanisms from this kind of a study design. You can take some guesses. You can have a well-informed guess that fits with existing theoretical frameworks and interpret what you think is going on. But this kind of study just really can't speak to mechanism. But you can start to speculate a little bit about whatever mechanisms do lead to female bisexuality or female exclusive same-sex attraction. We might be talking about different kinds of things because the patterns of personality traits just aren't working out in sort of you have a little bit of a dose and you become bisexual and then you end up with a certain pattern of traits. But if you have even more of a dose, then you're going to be a lesbian woman and have stronger, more male shifts in a lot of traits. So the data aren't really working out in that way in my own study and in some broader literature that I could talk about. So we're probably dealing with multiple different developmental routes to female same-sex attraction.
For this study, you use something called the Kinsey scale, which I love because I always say I'm not a hard 0, which would be exclusively heterosexual, 6 being exclusively homosexual. Why they started it at 0, I don't know. As a former computer scientist, I do love that because, computers, everything in computer starts in 0. What is the Kinsey scale and how did you use it to classify people who are bisexual? I guess I'm just asking you to define it because I think this kind of stuff is fascinating.
Yeah, so the Kinsey scale is admittedly kind of a crude measure. Researchers have moved past, we have more complex scales for this, but it basically measures exclusive opposite sex attraction, which would be a Kinsey 0, to exclusive same-sex attraction, which would be a Kinsey 6. Or you can score any point in between. So if you're a 1 or a 2, you'd be mostly heterosexual, but a little bit of same-sex attraction. 3s and 4s would be bisexual, and then 5s and 6s would be exclusively same-sex attracted.
Is it just a self-assessment? Would you rate a participant in the survey, in the study, just based on their self-assessing there?
Yeah, and so it has the advantage of rather than asking someone about their identity, because there's lots of different identity labels, and they can mean different things in different cultures and at different times. And rather than asking about behavior, which is going to be constrained, no one's sexual behavior looks exactly like what they would probably prefer. It can be kind of misleading to just ask about behavior. Usually when you use this type of a scale, you ask about fantasy, because people's sexual fantasies are unconstrained. And asking about what they fantasize about is a pretty good insight into what they find arousing. So the Kinsey scale is very simple. It's just one dimension, exclusively opposite sex to exclusive same sex. Increasingly, we want to measure other kinds of things. You might want to ask, how much are you attracted to males? How much are you attracted to females? You could even throw in gender diversity as a metric as well.
And of course, asexual people get an X on it. Let's jump back to the survey. What do you think are some of the societal or cultural factors, at least in the West, where you are, that might influence these personality traits to develop in bisexual women?
Yeah, so I think in some ways I would almost flip that question around and ask, well, what is it about having traits like psychopathy? And I don't mean psychopathy in like this really nasty criminal sense. Most people, when they hear psychopathy, think like Ted Bundy, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about pretty normal personality variation. So what is it that would make these women who are mostly heterosexual or bisexual less concerned about what society thinks of them? So in some ways, I think that this is some insight into the fact that they might just be less hung up about other people's feelings and conforming to other people's expectations, and that comes through in their sexuality as well.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting take. Like people who are bisexual by some very conservative standards are living an alternative lifestyle. If they're not so worried about being judged by those who would seek to judge, I mean, you don't need to be judged about your other personality traits because f them, I think would be the crude way of of putting that. I have a silly question for you here. Practical suggestions for those who express the dark triad. So if I'm a psychopath, if I'm a narcissist, if I'm a Machiavellianismist, which, you know, I might be. That's the short version of why I'm here talking to you today. What takeaways from this study would you suggest to me to help with my dating? Should I be looking for bisexual women as a straight man to sort of match my dark triad? Does that mean if I'm looking for my equal, for a partner I'm going to see eye to eye to, I should open my dating pool up?
Right. This is a very loaded question. And I could get myself into a lot of trouble answering this. I would hasten to point out that these traits aren't good or bad. The bad comes maybe from the impact that the traits have on people if they're wronged or manipulated in some way. But as that overlaps in like a dating sense, I think there's a couple ways to answer your question. One is for people to just be aware that individuals with certain sexual proclivities or certain sexual interests might just have a slightly more likely, chance that they have certain types of personality traits. If you're dating, you're a guy, you're interested in women. If she's a Kinsey 1 or a Kinsey 2, she might be just a little bit elevated in some of these traits, which is just a thing to be aware of. And then, as far as the overlap and the way these traits all overlap with interest in casual sex, I think, like lots of casual sexual behavior, the key is just being honest and upfront. People tend to get their feelings hurt when there's uncertainty about expectations and what's actually going on, the nature of interactions, the nature of relationships, and that is something easy to solve in people actually just communicating and saying this is exactly what I want or I don't want. That is irrespective of the personality traits or sexual orientation of people involved.
I promise I won't play this for your boss, and I promise you won't be fired, Scott. Scott, it's an interesting study. Thanks for going over it with me. I really do appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk about this stuff and get it out to more people who might find it interesting.
His name is Scott Semenina. He is an assistant professor at MacEwan University in the Department of Psychology. In just a moment's time, it's Sex Etc. with Samantha Biddy, and we will talk whether we should let our friends set us up, why it's a bad idea, when it can be a good idea, and how you have to be very mature if you want to get involved with setting up your friends on dates. I've got a story from my personal life where things went wrong, and I hope you love it. July is coming to a close, and that means sexual health and consent educator Samantha Biddy is here. That makes no sense. For Sex Etc. Samantha, welcome.
Thank you.
What am I going to regret asking this? Maybe. What horoscope is what would I be if I'm born today?
You would be a Leo.
Okay, and what would that mean for me if I was a Leo?
Leos are fire signs, which are, in my opinion, as a quintuple fire sign, the most dynamic of that category of the elements. And Leos are, in their high frequency, extremely generous. I don't love the word loyal, but they have a devotion to the people in their lives. They're flamboyant. They're center of attention, like me, but in a really charming and charismatic way. They love pizzazz, and they are like warm and abundant and very like, there's nothing like the love of a Leo.
Okay, one more horoscope question. And this one, I think, I've pondered this a lot. I tell people I'm a Gemini. I always get sass. Why are Geminis the punching bags of all horoscopes? Like, why are we at the bottom? Why are we disliked? Why are we considered chaotic? You know, why why all the hate on us Geminis?
Well, Geminis are the twins, and the twins are, some people think of it as duplicitous, right? Like you have two, inside us there are two clowns, right? Like, to bring it back to however many weeks ago that was. But you know what I mean? So inside the Gemini are these two forces. And, you know, again, like all the different placements have different characteristics and high frequency and low frequency traits. And again, like Geminis are like they're air signs. So they can be a little bit fluid, and there's an intensity. And, you know, Geminis often are the artists, the activists, they're lovers. And also they will burn a bridge and leave you on the other side. You'll never know what happened. So some people live in fear of the Gemini. They're also very smart.
Duplicitous. I don't even know what that word means, but I like it.
Two-sided, two-faced.
Okay.
But I actually don't find Geminis to be two-faced. I think duplicitous is more effective or more accurate because they show you both faces. It's not like it's like two-faced implies that someone's like behind your back. It's like Geminis are not behind your back.
I once dated someone who, it was very explosive, got very close very quickly, and then it faded as quickly as it exploded. The flame burst? No, the flame blew out? Whatever the idiom is. I'm an idiot, so I don't know the idiom. And on one date, she said, you know, I have a real thing for shitty Geminis. And she meant that as a compliment. And I've always taken that to heart. I'm like, okay, that's what I am. I'm a shitty Gemini. And everywhere out there, there's somebody who's into that.
So Geminis are the drama. Like Geminis bring the drama. And so if you are, and air signs in general do that, like Libras will live for drama. Aquarius is like more low key and aloof about their drama, but they tend to have it. But yeah, Geminis will bring the drama and the excitement. And it's like, I think that similar to Scorpios, people have a lot of strong feelings about Scorpios. I personally love Scorpios and Scorpio placements. It is the unhinged sexual energy of the zodiac, which I like want and need. And so I love the drama. So people who love the drama are going to be like, I with the Gemini, I with the Scorpio. But if you need more grounded energy, or you need to know what you're going to get from someone, a Gemini is not necessarily the one.
Here we are. Let's talk about dating.
Sure.
Apps. I feel like every day I read a new article about how people aren't liking the apps anymore. It's a real wasteland out there. And so people are going back to the basics, maybe meeting people at a cornfield. I don't know. Where do people meet? Maybe meeting at a luge arena? Do you luge at an arena? Side note, how do you get into luge? Like, I've only seen it at the Olympics. Like, where is there let's say I want to become good at luge, where do I even go? I don't even know.
So for anyone who doesn't know what luge is, it's kind of like a sliding vessel, whether it has wheels or not. And it's two people lying on top of each other, someone on their back and then someone on their back on top of them. And I saw a meme yesterday that was like a photo of the luge, and they were like, and the meme was like, this seems like a lie that someone told to explain what they were doing, and it just got really out of hand. And that may be how you get into luging. I have no idea.
And that would explain why there's no luge courses, because it's just a recent lie. Somebody's like, oh no, honey, we were just luging. It's a totally normal thing that you saw us do. We don't just have a skateboard fetish and wanted to lie on each other sexually.
Exactly.
If luge is a romantic interaction between two people, is bobsledding group sex? That's a great question.
You know what? Let's address that if we ever have another Winter Olympics.
All right.
I'll circle back.
I feel like every winter for me is the Winter Olympics. Actually, that makes no sense. But oddly, I feel like you know what I'm saying. What is bobsled for, people? Okay, we're going to talk about dating. I don't know how I got on the luge tangent. I got some feedback today from someone I work with professionally being like, you take too many tangents on this show.
What I
Go ahead.
what I will say though is that this is Sex Etc. And so we covered the etc.
We did. Good. See, look at you. You just somehow made sense of it all. You gave it purpose. You wrapped it up nicely with a bow, and that's why I love working with you. Dating, people are going back to the basics. Maybe you meet at a bar. Maybe you meet at a luge lesson. And I'm not going to talk anymore about luge, although I do like what... Okay, never mind. I was tempted to do it again. Setups, though. I feel like every 90s sitcom, it's always like, oh, the blind date, the setup. That's the joke. And I feel like setups haven't happened like they did pre-apps, pre-internet. But are they coming back? Are people interested in the setup these days? I don't know.
I think they are. I think that it depends on your age, right? Because when you think about it, when you're like a teen and in your 20s, you're like at school or you're in your part-time job and you're surrounded by people who are your same kind of general age, interest. You know, people have parties, you meet people. There's just, you have more variety and social energy around you that makes sense for like sex and dating. I think I'm not in my 20s anymore. When you get older, you have less and less of that, right? And people pair off, and if you're single and you decide that or you're solo, you decide you don't want to necessarily have a traditional lifestyle, or maybe you do want to have a traditional life trajectory, whatever it is. That, you know, I think that's where apps are the most, that was the market that they intended to address. More and more around me, I've noticed that folks are getting set up on dates by their friends. So whether it's that a bunch of newly singles or singles have emerged in the market, because I'm in the like post-divorce, post-long-term committed relationship era of life, or if it's just that like we tend to, ideally, as we get older, have our friend groups be more intimate, more aligned. And within those friend groups, you're like, oh, actually, this person might be really cute with this person. I know you both. Can I set you up? And I've been seeing this across sexualities and genders as well. Like I have friends of all orientations, and that is what's happening to varying degrees of success.
When you see two people who you know, when you're maybe friend groups, maybe they slightly overlap, maybe they don't, and you think, oh, you two might be cute together. Can I set you up? It seems innocent enough. It seems like, oh, it could be a nice thing. I'll do it. It'll be nice. I'll make friends. Friends and my friends are great, and more friendship, more awesome. It isn't that simple because it doesn't always go well. And that's what I want to drill into when we come back with Samantha Biddy as we go into the sex part of Sex, Etc. And we are back from where, I don't know, me pressing the pause button and now it's hitting record, not important. Samantha Biddy is here. She's a sexual health and consent educator. Check her out on the gram of Insta. Her handle is Samantha_Biddy. That's Bitty. Did I get it right?
I think so. Samantha@Samantha_Biddy. Yeah, that seems right.
Good. Who is this Samantha Biddy without the underscore? I want to know about her.
We don't talk about that publicly.
Fair enough.
That's private.
All right. I just was attempting to dig into etc., which is not what we're doing right now. Should we let our friends set us up? That's the question we're grappling with here. It seems simple, right? Shawnee and Shauna are great people. They might even like each other. Why don't I set them up? Simple, easy, done. It's not that simple. It's sort of like when a friend buys you a book and then they keep asking you, did you read it? Did you read it? What did you think about it? It's a nice gesture you're doing, but there's all these implicit strings, you know? Like what if it goes badly? You've got to behave perfectly if it goes badly because I don't want you to mess up my relationship with them, and I don't want you to mess up my relationship with them. And what if it creates a schism and the fighting and you know, relationships can end badly, Samantha. Not everybody is as delightful to date as you.
Yeah, not everybody is able to be close, intimate, loving friends with all of their exes and situationships. as I am, I would say that there's a couple factors to think about if your friend is like, I want to set you up with such and such person, or if you're asking a friend, can you set me up with such and such person? You want to take into consideration, first of all, who is the person who is doing the setting uppery, because you want to make sure you have good boundaries with that person. You don't want them all in your TV and asking the other person, like all of that stuff. So you want to ensure that this is someone who's not going to feel like they are the parent of your new relationship. Let's say y'all meet and it all works out. So you want to take into consideration the character and the characteristics of the friends who want to set you up. Then you have to think about, what are you actually looking for? And be very, very, very clear about those things. Because if you're someone who's just like, I'm looking for a good time, I'm looking for a companion for, all the weddings we have coming up this summer and fall, but more or less I'm just kind of dating casually. You want to make sure that you're not being set up with somebody who's like looking for their forever person, right? Similarly to how you would screen on a dating app, oh, this person wants to have kids, I have a vasectomy, or this person is looking for something non-monogamous, but I'm a monogamous person. Like, you would still need to do that kind of assessment. And I think too that, let's say you get through all of that type of screening and assessment and consideration and thoughtfulness and intention, and you go on a date and y'all are like hitting it off and you're having a great time. You need to discuss between the two of you what your plans are for how you're going to engage with the friend group, right? Like, are we going to share all this like personal, private stuff that we're doing? Or what do we feel comfortable with? Or all of that? Because you don't want to be having these like intimate, private experiences with the kind of like through the lens of, oh, such and such friend of mine is going to hear about this or know this. Does that make sense?
It does. You're giving me a real roadmap here, but I'm attaching on to your first point, the character of the person who's doing the setup. Because I mean, it was almost 20 years ago that I got set up with my ex-wife. I miss being a young divorcee, by the way. Like, I remember when I was 26, 27, and I'd be like, I'm divorced, even though I wasn't actually. I was just legally separated. Same thing, right? And everyone would be like, you're too young to be divorced. And so I got used to, like, I had this thing that I could pull out of my pocket, and people would be like, oh, wow, it's a thing. David's a young divorcee. About 5 years ago, whenever I mention I'm divorced or my ex-wife this, people are just like, okay, yeah. And it makes me feel old, Samantha.
As you know, I deeply relate as someone who's twice divorced. And yeah, the first time and one was legal, one was common law, but was like, for all intents and purposes, a marriage. Oh yeah, when I was like 30 and legally separated, obviously like on the road to divorce, right? And I was in a new partnership with someone committed, blah, blah, blah. I loved, that was like a party trick. Like,
yeah, a party trick.
I'm like, I'm still married to some other bitch. Like, literally, and everyone would be like, hee hee. Like, it was always so charming. Whereas now, at our ripe age, it's just like, yeah, okay. Whatever, you and everybody else.
Yeah, it's like, I remember when my parents' friends or some old, person would be divorced. I'd be like, yeah, you're old. People get divorced who are old. Now I'm that person. But the first thing you said, you have to look at the character of the person who's doing the setup. I was young and I made mistakes. My ex made mistakes, and the person who introduced us made mistakes.
Stop.
What?
I just find that funny. Like, you're like, they made a mistake setting me up with my wife.
No, I just mean like I acted badly. Like, the reason for this story is like I acted badly, but I convinced my buddy, to set me up with her best friend, which was my future ex-wife. Okay, so my buddy, let's call her Anne, sets me up with Broomhilda. Broomhilda's my ex-wife. So, but Broomy, I guess for short, Broom.
I was literally going to say Broomy, but continue.
My ex-wife Broom and her best friend Anne, they were like childhood friends. They went to high school together, middle school together, all that. And then I get serious with my lovely ex Broomhilda, and I behave badly in a way towards Anne's boyfriend. I mean, I'm just getting you into the pettiness of it all, but I acted out. I might have didn't invite him to something or made fun of him. Like I wasn't always the ray of ethical sunshine that I am today. I was kind of shitty to her boyfriend, whatever. He was not a great guy, but I was bad to him. And it creates a fight between Broomy and Anne. It creates a fight between, and so Anne's like, well, I set you up so your allegiance is to me. And I know we were all young and I know we all made mistakes, but this kind of like jealousy, like you have to really look in the mirror and say, if I set these two people up and they get closer to each other than they individually are to me, am I going to be able to handle it? And you as the person being set up, you need to look at your friends and be like, is this person mature enough to set me up with someone? Because what if I marry this individual? Or what if I run away? What if we both decide to move to another city and our setup friend is like, you moved out on me. You're abandoning me. Like this was the kind of thing that went on as I was a late teenager, early 20s, as a fracture happened in a friend group and our setup was right in the middle of it. And again, very childish kind of stuff that happened then, but that can happen as adults. And so it's something to think about. And that's why when you say you got to look at the character of doing the setup, it sort of got me thinking that's so important, Samantha.
It is, because also too, we want, and this isn't like a slight on a friend of, like, you could have someone who is like a wonderful friend to you and you have a wonderful friendship and you love each other and it's beautiful. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have the best assessment of what a good pairing would be, or like everybody has their different strengths and quirks and all those different things, but it's also too like what is their attachment going to be to this bond that they see themselves facilitating, right? And it can absolutely happen as we're in our 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s. Like some of us don't grow out of some of those like high school dispositions when it comes to our friendships. Like friendships are such a beautiful as well as like contentious grounds, like well into our older age, and different levels of emotional intelligence and maturity and self-awareness are, there are friends that I would say, yes, I would trust them to set me up because they, first of all, know me well enough, as well as like, I trust their like assessment of another person. And I hate using the word assessment, but I'm just using it for the sake of like the denotative sense of the word. And then there's some people where it's just like, I just wouldn't necessarily think that would be the vibe.
Yeah, because we can sometimes grow closer to our partners very quickly, closer than they are to their friends. It's a different kind of relationship, and it's a shakeup. And I think a lot of people are emotionally mature to handle it, but you have to look at your friends. Like maybe you're not emotionally mature to handle it. Maybe you being the shakeup causer, like you're not going to handle it well.
Well, let's say that your friend sets you up, you trusted them, you're like, yes, da da da. And then you have this date or you start dating this person and then it's a mess, or that person like mistreats you in some way. It's like, how could you do this to me? Like, why would you expose me to this person? Like, so I just think that if we're going to do it, let's do it with intention and set ourselves up for success regardless, because next thing you know, you're all at the gathering and here's this person you had this horrible, awkward date with. And, my suggestion, if you are a setter-upper, is that you do the setup and then stay the out of it. Don't be doing like, oh my God, so how did it go? Did you like them? Ray, because you're now influencing the situation. What if you go to both friends and one of them's like, yeah, oh my gosh, I'm swooning, like loved it. We had this really great kiss. And the other person's like, yeah, it's like not it. Like I'm so, they gave me the ick. Now you're caught between two worlds and you're like, I don't want to hurt my one friend's feelings, but I also don't want, so if you're going to do the setting up, plant the seed and go on your merry way. Don't investigate further. All you need to ask them is like, am I inviting both of y'all to whatever is whatever?
Well, we've planted the seed of sex. We've planted the seed of etc. And now we're going to get the hell away. Samantha, what a pleasure it was talking to you today.
Yes, David, as always.
Samantha Biddy, sexual health and consent educator. There she goes. At the end of August, the Burning Man event will happen in Nevada. It's a desert romp, an arts festival, and my friend and foreign correspondent Tony Five is going to do his Ask His Questions About Burning Man segment with me, because I'm going. We'll talk about the orgy tent and other raucous things that the hippies get up to at that with Tony Five. We are here with foreign correspondent Tony Five, who's foreign, who corresponds, he Tonys, and there's 5 of them. Tony, welcome to the show.
David, you catch me sweltering. Oh, in the London heat, David. We're boiling. I think it's about 23 degrees here. London has lost its mind, David. We Brits cannot handle the heat. We complain when it's hot. We complain when it's cold. We complain when they're black. We complain with everything, David. It is all gone terribly, terribly wrong. The underground isn't air conditioned, which is your metro. It's just insane, David. No one knows.
Are the individual train cars air conditioned? I feel like I've asked you this.
No.
I feel like we're covering the basic small talk topics. Like weather is number 1.
Correct.
What's number 2, though?
Penis size?
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
yes,
11
those
inches.
are the 2 pleasant conversation topics to have with anybody, including your parents.
Yeah, it's the good. It's what the Queen would like, David. That's what she wanted.
It's that time of year where all I can talk about is the art festival,
God.
Burning Man.
Oh, I'm going to Burning Man. I'm so artistic. Oh my God, I'm such a liberal. I'm going to go and take my clothes off and poo in a bucket and just be around people who just love life and want to take churrasca. What do you call it? Churrasca? Chukapuska? What do they call it?
Ayahuasca.
That's the one. And, we're going to all go crazy. We're going to go smoke our socks.
Chukapuska? I feel like only I would know what you meant when you said Chukapuska.
Yeah, we're all going to go there and we're going to vibe and we're all going to have sex with each other and come back with herpes, STD, and really enlightened.
Wait, you don't have herpes? I feel like you're not cool unless you have herpes.
I know, right? So when is the big old Burning Man? Most of the listeners know that David will go. He will talk about it for another 3 months until we're all bored of it. Then it'll be Christmas, and then it'll be 6 months until he's going again. Then it'll be 3 months of him trying to convince me to go and shit in a bucket. So yeah, go for it, David. What's happening this year at Burning Man? Who is headlining it? What swamp-filled tramp is headlining Burning Man?
I feel like you don't know what the event is despite me talking about it for years now. Nobody headlines, Tony.
Why not?
It's not a concert.
There's lots of head, though, apparently.
There can be a lot of head. A lot of heads. Most people there have a head. Although I'm sure there have been accidental decapitations building out the art, but that I don't know.
And it's in the desert, right?
It's 2 hours if there's no traffic north of Reno, Nevada by car. Nevada or Nevada? I never know doesn't matter.
Nevada.
And it's in the middle of nowhere. It's a 2-lane highway, like 170, 160 miles north of Reno.
Okay.
And it's one of the most remote locations in the United States.
Obviously.
It's in a desert, but it's a dried salt bed. So it used to be a salt lake, and it dried up, 15 to 15 million years ago. Who knows?
Just about that, yeah, okay.
And so it's like an alkaline salt dust that covers the desert floor. It's not sand. It's not like what's the one in Africa? Sahara. It's not like the Sahara.
Okay, fair enough. And so for example, have they got electricity there?
Well, if you bring a generator, so you got to bring everything you need, including water, including food. If you want a refrigerationnizer, you got to bring a gas generator to plug your fridge in. Everything except for porta potties and ice.
All right, and there's no Four Seasons?
No, and my brother's husband says he'll come when he goes to the Four Seasons Black Rock City. That's the name of the city we build in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of nothing. They call it Black Rock City because it's called Black Rock Desert. Not much more to it than that.
We build. So what exactly do you do when you're building the city, David?
Well, I used to pound rebar stakes to put up military barracks and tents, and I used to construct a camp, but now I am with the organization, so a lot of it gets built for us by the staff who work in the organization. They put up our shade structure. They kind of plant. We have a couple trailers, office trailers on a construction site where it's like a shipping container, but inside's an office.
Yes, of course.
That's what our radio station is. It's a shipping container.
Right, but it must be really hot though, right? Without air conditioning, because they're all metal sides, right?
We do have AC. So we're there's a small diesel grid. It's a series of diesel generators for, critical infrastructure. And we are considered that.
You're critical infrastructure, aren't you, David?
Well, yeah. And during an emergency, they need the radio station, which we saw last year during the rain,
Yes.
which was a wild emergency. The emergency is as follows. It rained. That's it.
Yeah.
That was the whole. For some reason, it made national news, international news.
So let me just let me recap up to date. So this event is in the middle of a desert.
Yep.
There's hardly any power.
Correct.
It's in a salt bed.
Yeah.
There's mainly no air conditioning apart from very few places.
Yeah, I mean, larger camps or larger groups of people can bring RVs, which have AC, but you got to bring extra gas to run your AC
Of course,
because you'll
to
run out of
your
gas.
AC for 2 or 3 weeks.
So there is like AC, but yeah, by and large, most people are just baking in the sun in a tent.
Cool, and there's no sanitation as much.
Well, there's porta potties, and you're supposed to
Yeah.
bring your own water and wash stations, and there's, what is it, hand sanitizer at the porta potties. But
Of course, Purell,
that
of course.
just sanitizes the filth. The filth is still on your hand. Like if you pick up some poop with your hand and then you put,
Purell ain't gonna do much.
well, it'll get rid of the germs in the poop so that your hands will not, cause you to get diseases. But you still got the poop on your hands,
I agree. Poop hands are still not good. Purell should really do a new advert about the limitations of their product.
And it's an art festival. So a lot of people get grants from the not-for-profit arm of the organization to build art in the middle of nowhere. And some of the art can be spectacular, which we've talked about before. Maybe we'll talk about it now, not important. But any concerts or music or anything like that, generally these people have to bring their own equipment, build their own stage, set up their own concert venue, and they do it out of their own pocket, and they have to buy tickets like everybody else. So they're just regular attendees, and as part of the event, part of the ethos of the event, where everyone's doing Mugajuba Dija ayahuasca, is that nobody's a spectator. And if you are a quote spectator, like you're a bad person who attends, they call you a participant. So like if there's an emergency and they got to like radio in the police, they'll say like, oh, we've got 3 participants who've had a heart attack rather than 3 attendees. It's just a fun little thing. So everyone is part of the art, I guess, in some sense.
Wow. So I'm sat here in my semi-air conditioned room with a functioning toilet, cold drinks, and I still don't want to be here. So God knows why I would want to do that. I just cannot see the attraction. I could quite happily put on YouTube and look at some smelly people for a couple of hours and still get the vibe. But maybe poop on myself. I could do that. I could soil my pants and still get the vest. I mean, I could get some socks and maybe smoke them and sing Kumbaya. Perhaps maybe I need to do that before I actually go to the full event. What do you think?
Maybe smoking sock is the next evolution of doing drugs, because mushrooms, magic mushrooms, psilocybin, it's a fungus, right? Mushrooms are fungus.
Yes.
And athlete's foot, also a fungus. So if your sock has athlete's foot in it because you have a bad infestation because you're a hippie, maybe you smoke the sock and you get just as high. That I don't know.
Do you think how they first found it in the 60s? Somebody smoked somebody's athlete's foot?
Perhaps. To answer your question, though, why can't you just stay at home, put on YouTube, watch things, and have air conditioning and toilets? That's the mentality of almost everyone, and those kinds of people don't go. And so it's an event for people who aren't the kinds of people who ask the question, why would I do this when I can just stay home?
So why can't I soil myself? I'm going to go to Burning Man.
Like, I won't skydive, but I'm the kind of person who says, why would I do that when I can just sit at home? And the people who skydive are like, great. That's why it's such a fun thing and a special thing, because people like you will never do it. It's the same idea.
I guess so, but skydiving, I can see the adrenaline rush, but I can't see the attraction in that. Or maybe it's fun. The only thing that you ever made me think, oh, this is worth going, was the gangbang tent.
There is a gangbang tent. Every slice of life, every hobby is represented there. For example, when I first started going, my friends who like drugs and electronic music and partying, they dragged me there. So that's what I did. And that's what I did for my first 3 years. But then I started kind of winding down that lifestyle and becoming more interested in performing. I found a group of performers. I found the radio station. I started volunteering at a radio station. Now I work at the event's radio station. Yeah. I have a friend who's a carpenter who did the same thing. He was like a young guy. He just was like doing odd jobs to make ends meet. Now he's a very serious carpenter. He builds like wooden shelves for rich people's houses and all this kind of stuff. Banisters. He works with a camp that builds a wooden art piece every year. So
he still goes. He
yes,
still goes.
And like, I don't know, it just creates this environment where you can like be what you want to be, find your people. If you're an orgy guy, you'll find the orgy people. If you're a carpenter, you'll end up building a massive wooden art project. If you're a radio personality, there's a radio station. It's like every weird slice of life is represented, and it's the most eccentric version of it with the most eccentric people. Not the kind of people who are like, yeah, I'm a carpenter, but I'm kind of lazy. Why would I do some amazing art project? I'm just going to go home, you know? Like, your mentality is why it's so great.
I quite like chicken. Is there a chicken tent?
There's fried chicken. There's a bunch of Quebecois that have a poutine tent that's wildly popular. It's called Midnight Poutine, and they give away poutine for free at midnight. You know, every slice of life.
Wow. So they must bring all of that equipment, the cheese, the refrigeration, and everything, right?
Yeah, and if you're serving food to the general public, first of all, you have to serve it for free. Nothing you can buy there. You have to get like a food permit from the state of Nevada.
That's what I was going to say. Is there permits so that they're not just serving stuff? That's amazing. That is kind of cool. I would go for the midnight pussy.
Midnight Poutine. We're here with Tony 5 doing my annual dump on what I think about Burning Man as I get ready to go to this event that's in approximately a month. Tony 5 is here and I'm singing him a song that I just made up. I don't even know how the second part is gonna go. Surprise, there is no second part. Tony, welcome.
David, yep, you're definitely in the Burning Man phase of the year. I know we will call it the BM phase of the year. This is the phase, ladies and gentlemen, where David is so hyped and prepped to go. He started not to wash. That's the preparation that he takes for the Burning Man event. Have you got your flights yet?
No, I got to book them.
Cool. RV?
No, I'm staying in. I don't know. We don't have accommodation lined up. We were supposed to get a tent and now it fell through and whatever. Not important. You mentioned that I wind up for Burning Man by not washing because it's
Correct.
An event in the desert with hippies. There's like shower bags. If you've ever been camping, Tony, you fill a little bag with shower. There's a little nozzle and you put the bag up high so you get water pressure and then spray yourself with a nozzle. There's that. So there is washing. It's just not amazing. But I don't think I ever told you this. About 6 weeks ago,
Yeah.
I got fed up with Miranda staying up all night on her phone and then waking up and grabbing her phone and then staying in bed in the morning and being on her phone and then letting time pass and then her saying, oh no, I'm late for work, and then being in a big scramble. Can you feed the cat? Can you open the blinds?
Yeah.
Can you do all the morning chores because I'm late for work? Because she was just on her phone.
Which is my issue as well. You know that, right?
Yes. My solution to that issue, for me, not only...
Did you shoot her? Did you shoot her?
No, that was
Okay.
when we were discussing solutions to this, that was on the drawing table, but sadly it's a crime and she didn't want to be shot and I didn't want to lose her. But other than it being a crime, her not wanting to die and me not wanting to shoot her, it was like number one choice.
Such a spoil sport, David. She's such a spoil sport. Never supportive at all of your ventures, right?
No. So for me, not only was it bad at night, staying up too late, and bad in the morning, like staying in bed, not getting out of bed, it was also like late at night when I was feeling insomnia, I would like grab my phone and then the blue light would keep me up. So I have a solution. I've talked about it ad nauseum on the show. It really works for me. I plug the phone in out of reach. I plug it just in my living room here, which is close to my bedroom. It's about 10 feet away from my bed. And that's what I do. I just isolate my phone so I don't have access to it as part of my bed routine. And it has worked wonders for my sleep hygiene. Miranda doesn't have an issue with sleep hygiene, but she has an issue with really the morning where she stays on the phone. So I told her, and I'm going to get to how this relates to hygiene in a second. I told her if she starts doing that with me, even though she didn't want to, I'll shower every other day. That's our new deal.
Every other day?
Which is a lot for me. I mean, that's up from every 3 days.
Wow, that's 3 to 4 days a week. Wow. I mean, that's a great bargain. That's probably one of the bargains of the century. So she's been doing it and you've been showering?
I have, and I feel great. And one of my big issues with showering is it like dries my skin out. It makes my hair kind of, but if you're showering regularly, it doesn't dry your skin out. This is what I guess I knew that intuitively, but my hygiene since the pandemic, I feel like a lot of people's hygiene temporarily, when you're just staying at home, like who knows if you brush your teeth, who knows when you last showered. But for most of the world, that lasted for like 6 months max when people were in lockdown. I, for some reason, have let that continue on almost 4 years now.
4 years, yeah. I was going to say, most days that I see you, I ask you, have you had a haircut?
Yeah.
And you look at me and you say straight away to me, no, I've just had a shower. So like today, you look really clean. I'm like, have you had a haircut? You look great. And you'll obviously say to me, no, I've just had a shower. To the point where it's getting ridiculous that I now know you shower. Your shower hygiene looks like you just look clean, which is phenomenal. You deserve to be Burning Man. You deserve to be the Burning Man.
So as part of winding up, my hygiene's actually improving, and I don't want to let it slip. So I guess I'm going to be taking a lot of those camp showers, which are kind of horrible, but, at least I'll be clean.
Oh, God. But what if you get sort of diarrhea or
I do.
or any illness there?
I do.
Do you?
I do almost every year because the food situation is not great, right? Like it's
Yeah.
a
So what
lot
do
of
you eat
canned
then?
goods, a lot of pre-prepared goods, a lot of power
Right.
bars and granola bars. I mean, we have hot meals. Our camp sets up a little kitchen.
Okay.
And I have access to like staff meals, which are hot meals, but you miss one and then you're like, oh, I'm going to just make some ramen, Plus sanitation, who knows how good it is.
Yeah.
I always end up getting diarrhea. And I got to say, I don't know, having diarrhea in a porta-john or a porta-potty, or what do you call them? Portaloo?
Porta potty, yeah. Porta potty.
It's not that bad,
Don't see that level of uncomfort. I get the kind of artistic uncomfort that you probably experience, the entertaining discomfort, but that to me just sounds like uncomfortable discomfort. It's like borderline punishment for me.
It is, but it also means that everyone who's there wanted to be there. There's no like casual people who show up for an hour, look at their
Yeah.
cell phone and leave. There is no cell reception. So
Yeah.
everyone who is there, I mean, not everyone there is an artiste, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of artists there. There's a lot of weirdos there. It's very like socially open. You can talk to anybody. And, just the fact that you have to put in so much effort to be there means a lot of
Yeah.
people aren't there,
And there's no celebrities. It's not like I don't know what the celebrity version is. There's a celebrity thing that everybody goes to every year. Coachella, and they're all selfies. I don't imagine Burning Man is one of those sort of events, is it?
Dude, I mean, Diplo goes, Elon Musk goes, Paris Hilton
Wow.
goes, Zuckerberg goes, Puff Daddy or P. Diddy or Puff Waddy or whatever his name is.
Yeah, but they're going luxury, dude. They're not shitting in a bucket with you.
No, they're not. And Chris Rock went last year. He
I remember. Yeah, I remember you told me that. Yeah.
he stereotypically walked off out of the event while the rain was happening when they told everyone to stay put.
Yep.
But these celebs, I mean, maybe people go, or they probably just stay in nice RVs, like because they don't,
Yes.
they just can afford to trash an RV because you really do ruin your car. The dust and the salt gets in the
Oh
car.
my God, I can imagine it be awful. And hiring a car, you must have to opt for the most covered insurance because your car must come back ruined, right?
I, quote unquote, hire a car every year. I rent a car every year. I have to take it for detailing, but I have to get like the engine shampooed because one year I returned it. I got it detailed and they knew that I went there because they just kind of knew there's a little dust.
yeah.
So they popped the hood and I could not, in front of me, and I could not believe what I saw in the engine compartment. It was like someone dumped a beach in there. So every year
No.
after I spend the extra $75 to get the engine compartment cleaned, I've never been fined. But that year they gave me a fine. I had to pay the full rental car fee and then a
No.
cleaning fine. Not important. Back to the celebrity question. They all go, but they're there to just, be participants. They're not there to like
Participants,
perform
yeah.
or.
But what do they do? So like when you say, like for example, Chris Rock, really cool guy. I like him, one of my favorite comedians in the world. There's no music, there is music, but it's people bringing their own stuff. But I just wonder what he does there. He doesn't do a stand-up routine. Does he just be part of it? Just be part of the environment, the atmosphere, meets people, chills out, that sort of thing, yeah?
Yeah, he's there to hang out with his friends and meet people and go to parties. It's kind of like you don't get that hard a time for being a celebrity there because there's so
Yes.
much chaos. You can kind of blend into the. And there's a culture of wearing dust masks. This is well before the pandemic. So if
Right.
celebrities really want to conceal themselves, they get like stylized dust masks that have like
Gotcha.
metal studs on them,
Yeah,
you
I
can get
understand.
steampunk dust masks. But yeah, I'm excited. I really like working on the radio station there.
Yeah.
That radio station there helped with my imagination for what working in commercial radio would be like. I had no reference
Yeah.
for it, and there I was working at a quote unquote commercial radio station for 2 weeks of the year with professionals who,
Yeah.
like me now, had this career. Well, my career's.
David,
let's
don't
even
get
though-
carried away. Let's not get carried away, David. Come on.
I have been on commercial radio. That statement is true. Not much else. And it really kind of like gave me the courage and let me kind of play. It let me
Yeah.
For example, I was talking to someone, so there's an airport there because it's a flat desert floor. People land their planes. It's mostly just small pilots and stuff, people who aren't like wealthy people, but there are wealthy people who fly in. And I was talking to someone who volunteers at the airport, and I'm like, oh, you must be in aviation in real life. And he's like, no, I'm like in marketing. And the girl he was with, also volunteering at the airport, was like, no, I'm a waitress. They're like, we're obsessed with planes. We always wanted to be in aviation. And for 2 weeks of the year, we get to play house. We get to play dress up. And that was me in radio before I started doing radio professionally.
I mean, there's some things to be playing a radio DJ. There is, I guess, a certain degree of weirdness being air traffic control for 2 weeks.
Well, no, obviously the ATC is a but they like worked in, in support, like checking in people or helping unload or load planes. Like they got to, as much as you can work with planes without having a license. No, they didn't. They didn't have a waitress as the air.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, for 2 weeks I just fly a plane. I just get in a Boeing 747 because it's Burning Man, people. So let's just all go fly a plane. No, I get what you're saying.
Not quite.
But that is pretty funny.
Not quite. There is a guy that you would like on the main area where all the kind of events are and the big operations that have like interactivity. There's a roller disco, and the guy who runs it, I think he has like a normal career, but he's always wanted to own a roller disco. And so, and it's like a full operation. It's like he builds a roller rink in the middle of with neon lights and disco balls, and he plays disco, and people love it. And the craziest thing about that, and this is the craziest part of the event for me, the shoes, the roller skates, there's like 100 pairs of them next to the rink. But
you read my mind. So he must bring them all, right?
But they're all disgusting and hippies barefoot. If you want the most funky strain of athlete's foot, go to that roller disco. So if you love roller skating and you're planning on going into the desert, which is probably no one listening, but I'm just saying it for myself and maybe you next year, Tony, bring your own roller skates.
Good Lord.
Or get plastic bags to put between your socks and those roller skates, because you getting fungus, that's for sure.
Yeah, I just realised that if he's going there, he must have to bring these 100 pairs of relatively mixed-size roller skates, right?
Yeah.
Because I doubt very much people are going to go, toilet paper, toothpaste, roller skates. Yeah, fantastic.
Have I talked you into it? Every year I talk you into it. You're like, yeah, I might do it. And then you come back to, no, I just can't. It's too much money.
No, not this year. I think pooping in a bucket is something that I will do later on towards the 2020s, David.
Tony Five, foreign correspondent. As always, thank you for being here.
David, always a pleasure, never a chore. You have a wonderful day, and I will try and experiment with athlete's foot today. Smoke it, use it, cook it, sleep with it.
More and more research is linking aging with cancer, but one factor that plays a major role in this is inflammation. So in a moment's time, we'll talk to a professor of medicine who specializes in cancers about that link of inflammation and cancer and how to lower your risks as you age. Aging, cancer. Why the risk of cancers increase as we age so much? There is a new way of thinking about all this. It's called inflammaging. That's a mashup of inflammation and aging. I'm here to discuss with a professor from the University of Colorado Medical School, Dr. James DeGregory. James, thanks for talking to me today.
My pleasure to be here.
Okay, let's jump in. I have always wondered why the risk of cancer increases so much as we age. I always thought it was because cosmic rays hit our body and cause mutations, and maybe our immune system doesn't have enough time to fight them, or you know what? My understanding is not very good. Why does the risk of cancer increase as we age?
Well, first, I think you have to step back and sort of think of the evolutionary reason, right? Like a mouse is going to get cancer if it lived long enough in its second year of life, while we get it in the second half of a century. And the reason's quite simple, is that natural selection invests in our bodies to the extent that maximizes our chances of reproducing. And if a human, which we were, since humans were very unlikely to be around and reproductive past about 50 years of life for most of our evolutionary history, it's only been within the last few hundred years that we've been living as long as we have, or at least that many of us did. There's always exceptions, right? And so you can imagine if you were an investor and you invested in a product to last way longer than it was useful for it to last for, that would be a poor investment. And essentially, that's what natural selection's done. So we essentially start to fall apart after the age of 50. It's a slow, gradual process. And that's not a program to get rid of us. It's the waning of a program to maintain us, because our chances of contributing to the next generation is going down. And so cancer, like other diseases of aging, is just a manifestation of that. It's failure of the system. And part of that is due to inflammation.
I like that frame. Like, in some sense, the evolution of our immune system was really only trying to get us to 50, so it did not invest in trying to prevent old age cancer. Therefore, our bodies are just not built to protect us from it. But now that we're aging more, we get it more. I really like that frame, but I guess that's why you're the expert and I'm not.
Exactly. And it's not just cancer. You could say the same for heart disease, for neurodegenerations like Alzheimer's disease. I mean, natural selection didn't have to work very hard to prevent them, because those diseases are not to a massive extent. There's always exceptions, right? But they're not preventing us from having offspring, which is the currency of natural selection, if you will.
Certainly is. Okay, inflammation, what role does it play in the development of cancers as we age?
So it definitely plays a role. It's not, there's no one factor. Cancer is complex, but inflammation has definitely been shown to be an important factor. And it basically rises in old age, probably due to some of this accumulating damage, some of the sort of failure to maintain our system properly. And there's also seen to be some changes in our immune system that are in some ways sort of pathological, where we become more hyper-inflammatory and less able to mount what we would call, sort of adaptive responses, meaning like responses against a new pathogen. The ability to make an effective immune response is going down, while our body is sort of overreacting to stimuli. And this is even one of the reasons that, the elderly were much more likely to die from COVID, was because in some ways, it's not that they don't mount an immune response, they kind of mount the wrong kind of immune response. And this sort of inflammatory immune response is fertile ground for cancers to develop. It helps at the earliest stages of the cancer, and it can even help them be more aggressive as the cancer progresses down its evolutionary path.
So, knowing what we've learned about that link between inflammation and cancer, I imagine we'd want to prevent chronic inflammation. What recommendations, or what is sort of the modern thinking on how best to prevent it so we can age with less of a risk of cancer?
Yeah, well, the recommendations I'll give you are the same ones your grandmother would have given you, which was, eat a good diet, exercise, don't do things like smoking. It's more the sort of simple stuff. I don't think we're ready for, you might think the simple thing is, okay, we've got anti-inflammatory drugs, right? Over the counter. Why shouldn't we be taking those? Well, the reality is that inflammation can also be our friend. It's the way we fight off infections. It's the way we can even repair our tissues. And so what's the problem with old age is that inflammation is kind of out of whack. But I don't think we have the sophistication yet to tune it back. But one thing we do know, that if you exercise, that actually reduces your chances of having sort of that excessive inflammation in old age. And we also know that modern sort of lifestyles, like if obesity, smoking, alcohol, all the things we know are bad for us, almost all of them increase inflammation. And so keep in mind that inflammation does go up as we get old, but it is very highly variable. You could compare, a dozen 60-year-olds. Some are going to have a more hyper-inflammatory phenotype, and some might have a profile that looks more like a 30-year-old. So it's variable.
Is it like variable genetically, or is it variable really only in lifestyle, diet, whether you work out?
It's probably more lifestyle exposures, whether you work out, things like that. I think those are probably playing more dominant roles. There certainly is a tempering effect of genetics, right? There's probably always that person that has the perfect genetics. So they might abuse their body, but they don't suffer the consequences quite as much. And there might be someone else who is doing the right things and is still going to have get that inflammation all their life. But that doesn't take away from the fact that you are improving your odds independent of your genetics by having those right behaviors.
So what I'm hearing is that inflammation isn't bad. It's used to fight certain illnesses, but also inflammation is bad. It can prevent illnesses. There's a certain irony there in the contradiction, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. And we also have to remember that even inflammation is not simple. There are different flavors of inflammation, if I were to put it sort of like that. And so there are types of inflammation that are more pathological and other types that are probably more beneficial. It's not a simple breakdown because, again, you might think, okay, this factor that contributes to more pathological inflammation, let's just get rid of that. Well, no, it still plays some good roles in other points too. So it gets really complicated. And I think this is going to be the challenge for biomedical science, is to learn how to tune it such that when we're 70, we have an immunological profile, inflammatory profile that's more like a 30-year-old, where the baseline is low. But if we get a bacterial infection, we respond appropriately and mount a good immune response to get rid of that infection.
Interesting. Okay, let's get nerdy for a sec. Tell me a little bit about macrophages. What are they? How do they relate to inflammation?
Yeah, I thought I was already pretty nerdy, but
let's get nerdier.
Nerdier. So macrophages are one of the white blood cells that, circulates around your body. It's made in the bone marrow, and it's critical for healthy immune responses. And again, this is also one of those, there is no one macrophage. There are different types of macrophages. Some that'll be more involved in tissue wound repair, for example. Some that might be more involved in getting rid of certain types of infections and gobbling up like bacteria and so forth. And then some can even be sort of, usurped by the tumor to do its bidding, right? So that some macrophages can become, they're known as tumor-associated macrophages, and they can become very useful for the tumor cells, helping them create an environment that, for example, prevents an effective immune response against the tumor, and even helping them spread and metastasize. So macrophages play all sorts of complex roles. And once a tumor is formed, they probably, if anything, tend to be more pro-tumor than anti-tumor. But I think early on in the process, they can also play anti-tumor roles as well.
I was watching a recent video about macrophages and tattoos, how the reason tattoos stay locked into your lower skin layers is because macrophages kind of surround them, and then they die and they form this hard wall or something. Is my understanding correct on this, or am I totally out there?
I have no idea. I'm going to have to Google that one afterwards, because I know, I'll have to say, I know nothing about tattoo biology.
I know. You sound like my dad, who's like, you'll never get a job, yet here we are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I may be a professor, but I've got tattoos. So
oh, cool. I'm gonna play this for my dad. So is there any takeaways or any recommendations? I know you said the basic ones like diet, exercise, but based on new research or the newest research into inflammation, are there any things that you're like excited about or you want to share with people that is maybe against common wisdom?
Yeah, no, I think in some ways I think we want to pursue a lifestyle that is balanced and, healthy. But I also think we also have to be cautious about going out on extremes and watch out for the fads. For example, blueberries are good for us, but if there's a diet that says eat, 3 quarts of blueberries a day, you're probably going to push things out of kilt. So the best thing to sort of consider is do things in balance and then don't worry about it too much, because stress itself, can be pro-tumorigenic. So I think we want to, eat a balanced diet, but not too extreme on any one thing. I think you want to get exercise, but, should you be doing the 100-mile runs? Well, there's probably, some evidence that even that's too much, so be reasonable, don't sweat it. And I think you need to be careful with supplements. I think a lot of supplements are they're pushing things out of whack. You're taking one little component that in itself is probably playing an important role. And you probably do want to have enough of it. But if you're getting it from a supplement, you're often, flooding the system with too much of one thing. And that can be just as detrimental. So just like I was saying with inflammation, we want to achieve a balance. You want to get that right amount of inflammation. And until we really understand how to do that medically, beware of the pills and just follow the simple advice of living well.
Sort of like water. You need a little bit of it to live, but a lot can kill you.
Exactly. No, it's just like a lot of things. I think we need to sort of follow the rules that nature intended.
James, thanks for talking to me today about inflammation.
My pleasure. Always happy to talk about it.
Dr. James DeGregory is a professor at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. Do you think size matters? That is, do you think people select mates who are really tall? Well, new research says that for mammals, the more complex their brains are, the less they care about size. So if you're really smart, you don't need a tall guy, right? Is that the takeaway? I don't know, but we're going to talk to someone who did this research about mammals in just a minute. Well, it turns out the smarter you are, the less you care about the size of your lovers. Well, that's not actually the whole truth, but there's a new study that shows that a larger a mammal's brain is, the less they care about their partner's size. I'm here with someone who's done that research. His name is Benjamin Padilla Morales. He's a bioinformatician at the Milner Center for Evolution at the University of Bath in England. Ben, thanks for talking to me today.
Oh, well, no, thanks to you guys for inviting me here and I don't know, and chat whatever I'm doing at this moment with my research and all my PhD life and blah, blah, right?
Yeah, I'm excited to jump in. Treat me like an idiot, mostly because I am, but also because I haven't done the study. What is sexual size dimorphism? What does it mean for mammalian? Is that the word? Mammalian mammals?
Well, sexual size dimorphism, it's how we call it. It's the difference in sizes between males and females. That's sexual size dimorphism. But also you can find on the internet or wherever you go and read just sexual dimorphism, which means difference between males and females.
So evolutionarily, if there's a species with larger males and smaller females, does that mean that the females preferred the larger males for mating? And that shows that they sort of select for them, and that's how that dimorphism came to be?
Well, that's actually a good question that we have different, how can I say, results going from different directions and everything. But to call it in a way, sexual size dimorphism could help for, as you said, maybe some females prefer bigger mammals, but also things that you could be a bigger male and you can compete for example, to defend your territory where you mate, or for example, it could be like a male to male competition as well.
Well, I'm a short person, so this study's of particular interest to me. Where have you noticed that certain kinds of mammals like big partners, big mates, and certain kinds of mammals prefer, ones around their same size?
Well, for example, in apes, and for example, like in those kind of in apes, for example, chimpanzees, gorillas, etc., all of those, it's very common to find like fights between males. For example, gorillas, they compete. And I think that pretty much everyone has seen on the internet like a combat between two big gorillas punching each other,
yeah,
and with females around and everything, right? Yeah, that's one of the examples there, and also one of the very marked examples here. It's the elephant seal. The elephant seal. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, those guys are super huge compared to the females, and well, they fight to death to actually mate with other females. Those are very chunky guys in some kind of way.
Where does your research come in? And did you link that size to brain size or brain development?
Oh, well, the thing is that imagine, I don't know, me and my supervisors and colleagues here thinking about, okay, well, what we will do next, right? And then we start digging around in our data. We got this sexual size dimorphism data from the web, and then we start to make some correlations based on the thing. Why we're interested, for example, in sexual size dimorphism, it's because it's a very good proxy to something that is called sexual selection. And what is sexual selection, you will think? Is that, imagine that it's like natural selection. It's a force that pushes evolution, but with sex involved, like how we mate, how we reproduce with each other within a species. And it's a force that is pushing evolution since Darwin said it in his book. So, and the thing here is that that's why we got interested in sexual size dimorphism, and then we start running these correlations and everything, and then after that, we found that the genes that were expanding, or let's say that they were a larger number versus a smaller number of gene families. The gene family is just like the name. It's a group of genes that are similar between each other. And we found that the ones that are like in bigger numbers, to call it in a way, they were related to olfactory functions. But the ones, and maybe the most interesting thing, at least for me and my group, was that the ones that were having like a contraction, or that had a smaller number, were related to brain development between a set of like 124 mammals. So, and then we started digging there, and we found that those genes there, the ones that were like had a smaller size, to call it that, were linked to brain development.
I guess we can conclude that size doesn't matter the more intelligent you are?
Well, that's an interesting question, because as many research projects, I'm sure that you have listened to many people talking about the research, nothing it's black and white, right?
Sure. I mean, it's a soundbite that people in the media like to get, like, oh, size doesn't matter if you're very intelligent. I know it's more nuanced than that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the thing is that in some kind of way, what happens here is that the fact that you have that, for example, in mammals, the fact that they have larger size, so they have larger difference between males and females, doesn't mean that they are dumb or something like that. That only means that they are having, apparently from their evolutionary perspective, they have they are investing in other resources, right? Meanwhile, the ones that have like a shorter size or a difference, at least, that doesn't mean that they are smaller. Those are investing in brain development because both things, which is size and also brain, are very expensive to create them and to evolve them because maybe obvious reasons for me, but not so sure for others. But that's why these animals in some kind of way prefer they don't prefer. Let's say that the circumstances has pushed them to develop their brains.
So you also looked into heightened sense of smell as it comes to this sort of research. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, sure. The thing is that at least for sexual selection, as I said before, sense of smell, it's something very present. Because, it's a chemical signal. For example, if you have seen, a lot of mammals, they smell things to communicate between each other. For example, some small rodents, they use the smell also to identify their offspring, and also, for example, to identify the territory of other mammals or other species inclusively. And also, for example, to actually identify a mate, if it's a receptive mate, you need the sense of smell. And apparently, if I'm not mistaken, I have read that this kind of a gene family linkage between sense of the smell and gene family evolution, it's been dragged by mammals since like ancient times in some kind of way.
So what is the relation to smell and then sexual size dimorphism?
Yeah, well, in this kind of way, what I will say is that it's linked to, for example, territory defense or identification. That, for example, if you smell that a big and smelly mammal, it's there, you can say, oh, apparently this corner belongs to this other dude, right? Or, for example, you go there and then you smell, for example, oh, this smells like interesting, maybe a potential mate is around there. That's an assumption. It's kind of based on some research done by other people and etc. But I mean, sometimes we have to think in a global way, right?
Okay, well, thanks for going over this study with me, Ben. I really do appreciate you walking me through it.
Oh, yeah, don't worry.
Benjamin Padilla Morales is a bioinformatician at the Milner Center for Evolution at the University of Bath. That's the show. Thanks for listening. I'll be back tomorrow with another one. Kisses.